Welcome back to the Am I Rich Yet podcast, a weekly podcast for millennials and Gen Zs where we help you save, spend, and grow your money smarter. Welcome to episode 23. This is an episode where we talk about how to grow your income. So by the end of this episode, you will all be millionaires and never have to work another day in your life.
Sounds good to me.
My name is Georgia, Gen Z MBA student, and I'm navigating my personal finances.
I am Rob, George's dad, and I am a recently retired financial advisor here to help you make smart decisions with your money.
Welcome to Am I Rich Yet? Well, let's get into things. You got a question for me?
What's the one thing that keeps you up? What's your
You want me to expose my demons
Yeah,
to the
why
whole
not?
world?
Why not?
What keeps me up at night? As I have networking calls, I'm jobless, I'm actively connecting with people in the industry I want to work in to land my next job. That keeps me up at night these days. That's kept me up at night ever since I left my job and became a student. What that next step is going to be for me.
Interesting.
My question for you, disclose to the audience what your Aura Ring sleep score and readiness score was today.
My readiness score was 85, which gave me a little crown.
Ooh.
And my sleep score was an 83, which is one of my highest ever. I've never had a crown in sleep score.
Oh,
I
okay.
had a massage yesterday, and I must have fallen asleep for 35 minutes during the massage, so that's what pushed my score higher.
Okay, and that's really funny, actually.
Right.
Today's episode, like we said, is going to be on how to grow your income. But before we start, there are 3 points that we just talked about and something I want to bring to the surface and I wish we talked about earlier in our episodes. And these 3 things that I want to say came from a conversation I had yesterday with 2 friends. I was sitting out on the deck with Allie and Carter talking about how the podcast filming was going. And I said, it's a bit vulnerable talking about this topic of money. It feels a bit weird. You don't talk about money in your everyday life. It's kind of rude to talk about money. There's something I want to say about that. No, it was not. So, and Carter said, yeah, money's a taboo topic. And here you guys are filming a podcast about it. And that is so true. And the reason why we're doing it is because there is a knowledge gap for people. There's a clear need for millennials and Gen Zs, as we saw in the response to our questionnaire, that people want to know more. Because when you don't know something, it causes stress and insecurities. And that's what we're trying to do here is relieve some of those and educate. And you said this earlier on, your job was a financial advisor, so money was something we talked about in our family and became a normal point of conversation. But the 3 things I want to say, number 1, money and how much money you make specifically is the least interesting thing about you. If you're defining yourself by that number on your income state at the end of the year, change that up. It's the least interesting thing about you, full stop. Number 2, success is not defined by the number of times you've gotten a promotion in a year or what company you're working at or what income bracket you're in. For some, it might be, and that's perfectly fine, but that does not have to be your definition of success. And this was an exercise we did earlier on in my MBA where we all sat down and wrote out what our personal definitions of success was. And it was really helpful to hear what everyone else's were and then to define that for yourself. Success could be, it brings me happiness every day. Success could be, I work a job that I don't dread going to every day. I provide for my family. I'm a good friend and my job is actually irrelevant to my definition of success. Number 3, if you're working a job that brings you happiness and is fulfilling to you, that's the most important thing. And we can jump into it. Do you agree with those statements?
I do.
Anything to add?
It's interesting when I started thinking about this, I looked at how to grow your income in a couple of ways. One was, what are some of the things you could do to increase your income? And then I looked at it from the standpoint, I've had the advantage over the last 30 years, I've been a boss.
Yeah.
What made successful employees and what hindered some employees. And so I thought I'm going to start by sharing some of that, what I've learned over time. And It goes back to, I was working for the Hudson's Bay Company.
Rest in peace, Hudson Bay.
Rest in peace, Hudson's Bay. So I had worked for the Bay, and I was a regional manager, and I was sent down to the London, Ontario store to convert the Simpsons store to be a base. That was my job, the whole store. They had a store manager, but my job was to do the conversion. And I remember coming down, and I had a great regional boss at the time named Joe. Joe was as tough as nails. And Joe came down, we had a store visit, and he walked through the store, beautiful store. Think of it as the downtown Bay store, but smaller. It's 7 floors. It was a wonderful store, old building. Anyways, Joe walked me through the store, and there was probably 25 little things that he wanted done. He wanted this shelf moved over here. He wanted this display moved over there. He wanted a garbage can moved from here to there. 25 little things. Understand, I was moving entire departments from one floor to another. I had 2 young associates working for me directly, helping me with the move. And so I made note of everything. And that was on a Monday. And what I didn't know is on the Friday, Joe came back into the store. Normally you get a notice that they're coming into the store.
Sneaky Joe.
Joe came back into the store, and he grabbed my 2 associates without my knowledge, and he walked around the store, and he proceeded to tell them what a horrible employee I was, because I had not done one of the 25 things that he had asked me to do. They were all what I viewed as really small things, but they weren't small things. For him, that's what his priorities were.
What he asked.
And if he had come in and those 25 things were done, he would have been, I would have been a star, and everything would have been great. But it was a lesson for me to always do what your boss asks you to do first. And actually in our house, we've always said that rule. Who's the boss? Is it your mom or your dad? And do what your boss asks you to do first. As a boss of my own company, we had 3 rules. Do what your boss asks you to do first, do what you have to do second, and do what you want to do third. And if you put those things in priority, you'll have a happy boss, you'll get your stuff done, and you'll still be able to do the things that you wanted to do. Whereas if you focus on doing the things you want to do and then present that to the boss, if you haven't done your homework, you haven't done what your parents asked you to do, but instead you've redecorated your room, we're not happy. And the reason is simple. Your boss, whoever that may be, makes more money, is in a higher position, and therefore they are trying to delegate to you. And when they delegate to you, they assume it's done. And if it's not done, then there's a problem. So if you want to make yourself more valuable as an employee, do what your boss asks you to do.
Yeah.
Then you do what you have to do, which is your job. And then finally do what you want. Whatever that creative side is, do that next. And if you do it in that order, you're going to find you have more hours in the day.
I live by them. And the other one that you didn't mention, I mean, those are the 3 things in order that you should do. But the other thing is, as an employee, your job is to make your boss look good, especially if listeners are early on in their career. If you have that mantra going in your head with everything you do, every meeting you show up to, every call you make, like that I think drives people forward.
And even if you don't like the boss, they're still your next. I'm going to talk about something that we did interesting as a company. And this was an exercise we went through, and what we did is we had to come up with what our core values were as a company and for people working for our company. And we came up with, we wanted people that were likable, people that were professional, people that used their brain. I initially called it have a brain, and my team didn't like the terminology. But so we had professional, likable, have a brain, and then self-start. How it works is you can do your own rating. Think of yourself in your job, whatever it may be. A, are you likable? If you are, you get a 1. If you're half-half, somewhat likable, you get a 0. And if you're not likable at all, you get a -1. Okay? So pretty simple scoring. And you do the same for whether you're professional, whether you're a self-starter or self-motivated, and finally, whether you use your brain. And the highest score you can get, we had 4 values. The highest score you can get is 4. But the minute you have a minus, the highest score you can get is 2. So we made it really simple. Every employee who had 3 and above survived. Every employee who had less than 3, 2.5, and all the way down to 1, they didn't survive. And what happened is the entire team got better. Are you likable? Are you professional? Are you self-motivated? Do you find things to do? And finally, do you use your brain?
I think that's incredible. And it shows too that your company defined your values. Something I want to add in there though, as you're talking though, is those 4 values that you outlined for Team FG are not the same 4 values that every company has. And recently I was in a conversation with my friend Bridget, who was telling me about the interview process to get into her previous firm that she worked at, which is in the renewables sector. And she asked me a question and she said, how would you respond to this? And it was a question that was, you were faced with a situation where you either stood on moral ground for rights you believe in, or you didn't and got the job that the company needed you to get done. So it was a bit of an ethical dilemma. And I answered the ethical route when the right answer was maybe quote unquote the less ethical route. And Bridget said, you would not have passed our interview process because we look for people that put job above X. Now I'm making her company sound bad. They're a renewables company. They're doing great things. They're one of the top renewables company in the world. They hire incredibly smart people. Bridget is well-rounded, ethical, sharp as a knife. But I just thought of that example as you were talking about it, and I think viewers should know your company's values or know the company you're going into's values, because that is make it or break it. I'll leave it there.
Interesting. I basically came up with sort of 4 levels. You're an employee. You're working for someone else. So that's level 1. You're going to make a certain amount of income. Number 2, you're managing people. And so you're going to make a little more if you're able to manage people. Next up, to really make big wealth, if you maybe are able to start some type of business, some type of service business, whatever it may be, and maybe you take on a partner or a group of partners. You get to share in the burden of starting that business and the ups and the downs. Finally, you become a full-on entrepreneur and you're doing it yourself. Those are different ways of building wealth. Those who make it to the entrepreneur stage will make more money over time if they keep working at it. I just thought it'd be interesting to explore those 4 levels. What are the best strategy to grow your income, given what you're doing, without changing your job, specifically, or the company you work for? Number 1 is get to work early. If the office isn't busy, you get there early, you get there ahead of time, you get settled. Some people show up at 9 o'clock if it's a 9 o'clock start time. And then the first half hour, it's 9:45 by the time they're settled at their desk and getting a coffee. They're also the same people that are leaving on what I call a 5 o'clock track team.
Yes, that's what you
And I know that may sound harsh. I know your generation likes to work their hours, but good things happen in an office between 5 and 6 o'clock. And it's surprising because the clients are gone and everyone lets their guard down, and some really good ideas and togetherness happens during that time period. If you're in the 5 o'clock track team, you miss that. And it was a teacher who I explained this concept to, and they said, it's the same at a school. When the students are there, it's chaos. The minute the students are gone for the day, that's when the really work gets done in a school. And that's when they make progress. And if you're not there for that time, you miss out. Yeah. And we're not asking you to work till 8, 9 o'clock at night, but don't be on the 5 o'clock track team. Where that came from is at school. When I was in high school, we had those students that were on, we called it the 3 o'clock track team at the time. The minute the bell rang, they were at the door, no extra activities, no extracurriculars, and that was the 3 o'clock track team.
No, those are great. I live by those rules as well. I think you're right. There are going to be some viewers that, or listeners that really have that work-life balance prioritization and will disagree with that, but that's okay. These are just opinions that we're talking about. The other thing I'm going to say is these strategies to make yourself a better employee, essentially.
Correct. A lot of individuals are working from home, but sometimes it's a hybrid. If you have an opportunity, get into the office. That's where your bosses will see you. That's where you're going to pick up ideas, good work habits from other employees. Yeah. Only a certain percent of the population are really dedicated enough to work from home, is my take. And we actually had put a policy in 2 years ago, everyone had to be back in the office. I know that was tough, but it was the beginning of 2024. And I just said, everyone's back in. This isn't working for us. I would look for team members to get answers, and they were nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
And I'd go on to Slack. We had this other thing we could go on to. I couldn't find them. And then finally, they'd call me in from their car driving around. And I'm like, okay, this is what I thought was happening. I know that's harsh. That's just my take, but I'm starting to see some of the big companies are bringing people back. And it helps to separate life from work. Now, you, when you started in your career, that was during COVID and afterwards, and you went into the office and you got to know all the top people. And I think that helped your career tremendously. There's some advantages to that.
I'm in person, I'm an in-person believer every day of the week, especially if you're starting a new job. If you're not in that office for the first 6 months every day, you're just doing yourself a disservice. Again, that's harsh, but I believe that too. And if you're entering into your career, it is even more paramount because of all those reasons you mentioned. You pick up terminology from people around you, you network differently. But I will say we have people very close to us that work 100% from home because that's what their company and job mandates and requires, and it works for certain people. You could take all of these pieces of advice in many different directions, but we're giving specific advice.
Take advantage of employee benefits. Really look at the benefit plan. If you're with a company that's got a good plan, take advantage of it. Just sign up for every stock purchase plan, pension plan, RSP plan, health benefits, you name it. It can take some of the burden off of your expenses. You may be missing out on stuff that you didn't realize.
Set up a combo with HR too and say, hey, are there benefits that I have access to that I'm not aware of? Companies and firms, put that stuff down low for some reason. It's not very obvious. And I'm like, why are you
And now it's all,
it?
well, now it's, before you used to get a booklet and a manual, now it's all online, so you've actually got to do the work. I can't tell you how many times I've asked my clients to say, what's your benefit package? And they go, oh yeah, I haven't thought of that.
Yeah.
Well, no, go just read it.
Yeah.
We had a question, Georgia. I thought this was an interesting one. It was one of the reasons why we decided to talk about income.
So here's the question. With the definitively unstable and shifting nature of the near future job market, in brackets, AI takeover, how can a young person heed advice from those that are older as they may not have experience playing the same game that we're about to be playing? In short, should we take our parents' financial advice with the hugest grain of salt given the financial landscape they grew up in was completely different? I remember this question. It was submitted from someone I know who lives in Miami, and they wanted to give us a hot take.
Okay, so it's a hot take. So number one, I'm going to say no. So number one, I'm going to say yes, you should be taking some of your parents' advice. They've got the experience. Remember, your parents were your age once as well. They went through the same things. Let's talk about the concern about AI. When I went to university and I was in business school, we didn't have personal computers or anything like that. We had a computer room that we had to book to go get access to a computer to use. So the whole computer world hit us hard when we were coming out of university. Suddenly there were personal computers. That was supposed to take away all the jobs. Just like AI is supposed to take away all the jobs. No, it's not different this time. It's just something is different, right? It's AI versus computers. When the internet first came on, that was going to take away all kinds of jobs. Looks like it created all kinds of jobs, right?
True.
Here's a couple of interesting pieces. Gen Z's income today is 50% higher, adjusted for inflation, than baby boomers. I was born in 1961. There were more males born in North America in 1961 than any other year. What does that mean, George, when more males were born in my year?
More fish in the sea to choose from.
No, I had more competition.
I know.
I had a ton of competition. So Gen Z is making 50% more adjusted for inflation than baby boomers at their same age. Student loans. We hear a lot about the student debt that you have. Here's the numbers. Almost 60% of those loans are less than $25,000. And 80% are less than $50,000. Now, Georgia's looking at that data and she's going, wow, that puts me in the other 20%.
No, I'm looking at that and I'm like, yeah, 60% of fees are less than 25K. Because when I have looked into, and the loans I get from the government are like pennies. In that, they have a table that's like, what's your family dynamic, demographic, and this is how much you'll get. I was appalled by the number that the government would give, let's say, a single parent with a child. It was like $300 more than they would give a single person with no child. So those numbers don't shock me. I just think like people are having to get their money from other places because the government.
But understand what this is, just looking at student loans. So everyone talks about the burden that I've got these student loans. The loans aren't that big.
They're having to get these loans from other sources. I
No,
think.
but the total debt that they owe isn't that big.
The programs are still expensive.
Absolutely. And the programs have gone up in cost. The last thing, I think this was interesting too. At age 27, what percent of baby boomers own their own home? And what percent of Gen Zs own their own home at age 27? Believe it or not, for baby boomers, it was 41%. Gen Z is behind that, but they're still at 33%. So a third of Gen Z own their own home or condo or something. Those are some ideas on increasing your income. And yes, is it different this time with AI and so on? It is always different. Everyone always has mountains in front of them. And your mountains aren't any bigger than the mountains that previous generations had. That's just my belief. Again, this is my opinion on stuff. I've been around for a while, so I get to see all the mountains.
I think people are going to be disappointed they're not millionaires by the end of this episode, but I think we've given some great opinions and food for thought. Sure, there's a million ways you can get creative to make more money, and it's not easy. That's the other thing. All this stuff takes work, but this was a great starter.
What's your big takeaway?
Make yourself valuable.
Absolutely. Make yourself valuable to your company that you're working for.
And capitalize on your strengths. You
Yeah.
have a skill and you want to monetize it a little.
What's up next week?
Next week, we're going to be talking about the economy. Thanks
That
again
should
for
be fun.
joining us for another episode. You have just joined us on episode number 23. We are so glad you're here and listening. Hopefully, you've been listening every week since our drop on July 1st. And if you're not, we're glad you're here now. Thanks again.
Thank you.